So we have three wonderful speakers this morning to share a bit, or maybe a lot, of fun, wisdom, and new ideas that sparked their minds to a different vision. Please welcome Joyce Thompson.
Perception is not reality. Perception is a lens through which we view the world, and we commonly go about our business believing that that is reality, but in fact, our perception is limited by the constraints of our sense organs, and there are billions of other organisms in this world who perceive the world in a very different way. So nice to have so many people here, and our visitors, welcome. This morning I'm going to talk about the book An Immense World by Ed Yong. The book was on the New York Times bestsellers list, and Ed Yong won a Pulitzer Prize recently for a previous book. The subject of this book involves Umwelt, and we're introduced to that word early on. Umwelt is a German word that literally means environment, but back in 1909, a Baltic German zoologist named Jakob von Uexküll coined it to more specifically mean the perceptual, the sensory bubble in which we all live. It's an organism's model of the world, the meaningful aspects of the world for any particular organism. And that is very different for all of the wonderful animals that we share this world with. One of the things I like best about our services is the message for all ages. And we already had one, even though it was a poem. But I'm going to provide you with a second one, because there is no way I could, no better way to help you understand what this book is about than simply to read the first couple of pages of the introduction. So settle back, here we go. Imagine an elephant in a room. The elephant is not the proverbial weighty issue, but an actual weighty mammal. Imagine the room is spacious enough to accommodate it. Make it a school gym. Now imagine a mouse has scurried in too. I think that's a fine mouse. Jen thought it was a little large. She, bless her, she made the slides for this service. A robin hops in alongside it. Is the robin there?
He's on the elephant.
Oh, he's on the elephant, okay. An owl perches on an overhead beam. Or on a window. A bat hangs upside down from the ceiling. A rattlesnake slithers along the floor. A spider has spun a web in the corner. A mosquito buzzes through the air. Large mosquito. A bumblebee sits upon a potted sunflower. Finally, in the midst of this increasingly crowded hypothetical space, add a human. Let's call her Rebecca. She's sighted, curious, and thankfully fond of animals. Don't worry about how she got herself into this mess. Never mind what all these animals are doing in a gym. Instead, consider how Rebecca and the rest of this imaginary menagerie might perceive one another. The elephant raises its trunk like a periscope. The rattlesnake flicks out its tongue, and the mosquito cuts through the air with its antennae. All three are smelling the space around them, taking in the floating scents. The elephant sniffs nothing of note. The rattlesnake detects the trail of the mouse and coils its body in ambush. The mosquito smells the alluring carbon dioxide on Rebecca's breath and the aroma of her skin. It lands on her arm, ready for a meal, but before it can bite, she swats it away, and her slap disturbs the mouse. It squeaks in alarm at a pitch that is audible to the bat, but too high for the elephant to hear. The elephant, meanwhile, unleashes a deep, thunderous rumble, low-pitched for the mouse's ears, or the bat's, but felt by the vibration-sensitive belly of the rattlesnake. Rebecca, who is oblivious to both the ultrasonic mouse and the infrasonic elephant rumbles, listens instead to the robin, which is singing at frequencies better suited to her ears. But her hearing is too slow to pick out all the complexities that the bird's song encodes in its tune. The robin's chest looks red to Rebecca, but not to the elephant, whose eyes are limited to shades of blue and yellow. The bumblebee can't see red either, but is sensitive to the ultraviolet hues that lie beyond the opposite end of the rainbow. The sunflower it sits upon has as its center an ultraviolet bullseye, which grabs the attention both of the bird and the bee. The bullseye is invisible to Rebecca, who thinks the flower is only yellow. Her eyes are the sharpest in the room. Unlike the elephant or the bee, she can spot the small spider sitting upon its web. But she stops seeing much of anything when the lights go out in the room. Plunged into darkness, Rebecca walks slowly forward, arms outstretched, hoping to feel obstacles in her way. The mouse does the same, but with whiskers on its face, which it sweeps back and forth several times a second to map its surroundings. As it skitters between Rebecca's feet, its footsteps are too faint for her to hear, but they are easily audible to the owl perched overhead. The disk of stiff feathers on the owl's face funnels sounds towards its sensitive ears, one of which is slightly higher than the other. Thanks to this asymmetry, the owl can pinpoint the source of the mouse's skittering in both the vertical and horizontal planes. It swoops in just as the mouse blunders within range of the waiting rattlesnake. Using two pits in its snout, the snake can sense the infrared radiation that emanates from warm objects. It effectively sees in heat, and the mouse's body blazes like a beacon. The snake strikes and collides with a swooping owl. All of this commotion goes unnoticed by the spider, which barely hears or sees the participants. Its world is almost entirely defined by the vibrations coursing through its web, a self-made trap that acts as an extension of its senses. When the mosquito strays into the silken strands, the spider detects the telltale vibrations of struggling prey and moves in for the kill. But as it attacks, it is unaware of the high frequency sound waves that are hitting its body and bouncing back to the creature that sent them, the bat. The bat's sonar is so acute that it not only finds the spider in the dark, but it pinpoints precisely enough to pluck it from its web. As the bat feeds, the robin feels a familiar attraction that most of the other animals cannot sense. The days are getting colder, and it is time to migrate to warmer climes. Even within the enclosed gym, the robin can feel the Earth's magnetic field, and guided by its internal compass, it points due south, and escapes through a window. It leaves behind one elephant, one bat, one bumblebee, one rattlesnake, one slightly ruffled owl, one extremely fortunate mouse, and one Rebecca. These 7 creatures share the same physical space, but experience it in wildly and wondrously different ways. The same is true for the billions of other animal species on the planet. This book is 350 pages long and is packed with stories about the amazing creatures with which we share this world, and it gives us a view into their worlds. It is just fascinating. I wanted to read it to give you a sense of the very amusing writing style of the author. And just to pick out a few, we learn that electric eels generate enough, 860 volts, they generate enough electricity to kill a horse. And a couple of Australian horses gave their lives to prove that. But there are many other fish that generate electric fields, and they use it to navigate and to communicate with each other. We read about fire chaser beetles. Drawn to heat, they can sense fires from miles away, and they swarm to the fires where they mate and then lay their eggs on the charred wood because it provides wonderful sustenance for the grubs when they hatch. And we learn that elephants communicate with infrasonic sound, too low for us to hear, and it causes vibrations in the ground, and they can communicate for miles across the savannah and coordinate where they're all going to meet up at the end of the day. It is an amazing world, an immense world, an amazing book. Marcel Proust said that the only true voyage is not to visit strange lands, but to possess other eyes. This book gives us the ability to see our world with other eyes. And I would be happy to loan it out if someone would like to borrow it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. So, from nonfiction to fiction. What did I say about this? Oh, yeah. Remarkably Bright Creatures has received wonderful reviews. And it has been compared thematically to a man called Ove, which I know many of you read or saw Tom Hanks in the film as the title character. And I am excited to hear about this because the octopus is my favorite animal. Jen?
So this book, Remarkable Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt, the title, it got me. It enticed me, but the first chapter did not capture me, so I put the book down until a friend shared her enthusiasm for the book with me. And so I revisited it 1 year later and then thoroughly enjoyed it. Maybe that's happened to you before in a book. Sometimes it's just not the right time. In many ways, it was a typical fiction book. Characters included an older woman, probably about my age, who had experienced a life of loss, a gentle old man who silently adored this woman, and a young man who had not yet found his way. These fictitious characters began weaving together, resulting in new purposes found in each of their lives as they discovered each other and their connections. But that's just slightly entertaining. What hooked me about this book was its main character. I'd like to introduce you to Marcellus. He is a giant Pacific octopus, And I had never been enchanted by octopuses. In fact, I didn't even know what the plural was for octopus, but now I do. He's smart, he has personality, and he befriends his caretaker. The story centers around Marcellus, who lives in captivity and has a very close relationship to Tova, who is a grieving 70-year-old woman who cleans the aquarium at night. The book highlights the frustration and unhappiness Marcellus feels in captivity. Until this book, again, like I said, I knew nothing about octopuses, and I questioned what the author conveyed about the intelligence and the abilities possessed by an octopus. So I investigated, and I discovered that the author was correct. And so here's some of the facts about octopuses, whether you want to know them or not. Did you know that they can change their color in 1/10 of a second? And that their blood is the color blue. They're venomous, and they have sharp beaks that allow them to deliver painful bites. The giant Pacific octopuses have 3 hearts. Their bodies use 2 of the hearts to pump blood to their gills, and the 3rd heart circulates blood throughout their bodies and tentacles. Now, the average giant octopus grows to a length of about 16 feet. Now, that's longer than 3 of my husbands in a row. That's a big octopus. And he weighs between 70 and 110 pounds, but there's one in the world that was found that was 600 pounds. I can't imagine. They're highly intelligent. They have complex and well-developed nervous systems. They have very unique personality traits. One might be bold and brave, and another might be quite shy. This breed of octopuses are solitary. I guess they're introverts, I don't know. They spend most of their time in their dens until it's time for them to go out and search for food. Now, they don't have any bones. They have no bone structure. That means they're the ultimate shape shifters, and they're capable of squeezing themselves into unbelievably small spaces. Now, they have the 8 arms, and each of their 8 arms have 2 rows of suckers, and they're used to taste, to smell, and to grip. In fact, one of their suckers has more taste receptors than the human tongue. So each tentacle has 280 suckers. You do the math. You multiply that by 8, you might come out for more than 2,000 of them. That's amazing. And that's just on one octopus. Surprisingly, the suckers on an octopus are individually controlled. In other words, one can do something over here. The other 7 don't need to care or know what it's doing. Yeah, they can pull apart prey. They can unscrew jars and pill bottles. They have amazing eyes. They have rectangle pupils that they can see in all directions. Now, they have short lives. Their life spans 3 to 5 years, and that was emphasized throughout the book. Marcellus was quite aware that he had a very short life. And they're super brainy. Oh my gosh, guess how many brains they have? Guess. 9. Yes, 9 brains. They have 1 in their head. And then each tentacle has a mini brain. They can their satellite brains can communicate with each other and perform fine tasks without having to check back with the main brain. Their smaller brains are clusters of neurons that let the octopus control each of their arms, and they take in a bunch of sensory information. Now, just to recap on how intelligent these octopuses are. They can open child-proof containers. They can solve simple puzzles, and they can use tools. They're perfectly capable of opening or closing tank valves, and they can disassemble equipment. And they make on-scape attempts down drain pipes. A sneaky octopus will even leave their tank and go hunt fish in neighboring tanks and return to their tank and act if nothing has happened. And that did, by the way, occur in this book. Have you ever wanted to walk into or in somebody else's shoes because you'd like to see how things look from their point of view? Well, this book helped me walk into the many shoes of an octopus and have a glimpse of his reality. Remarkable Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt is an easy read. The author offers an accurate understanding of the complexity of an octopus who does not deserve to live in captivity. And the best part, and I'm going to give away the book, I'm sorry. The best part by far, Marcellus was ultimately set free, thanks to Tova the human who loved him. Thank you.
See, that's why an octopus is my favorite animal. I'm telling you, they're so cool. Thank you, Jen, of course, and for your wonderful slides today as well, Jen, and your coordination of all the music. We so appreciate that you help us the way you do and work with associates. And now to direct personal experience. Jenny Lawson's Broken in the Best Possible Way from our friend, our wonderful friend, Alyssa Church. Welcome, Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. I'm here to put us back in our own head. Is anyone already familiar with Jenny Lawson, the bloggess? So you folks probably know why I jumped on it when a copy of this book showed up in my local Buy Nothing group. If she's new to you as an author, as a humorist, just know she's about my age. She hails from Houston. She's screamingly funny, in my opinion, but highly relatable, too. The word irreverent is used a lot to describe her writing, which mostly means that she's liberal with the profanity, and she doesn't shy away from adult topics, the kind that I'd really not get into from the pulpit, so forgive me for not quoting a lot. Maybe an OWL class, though, if you want to check out an OWL class with us. But in her blogs and in her books, and in this one, she talks about anything and everything, elevating mundane errands into hilarious quests or petty arguments with her spouse into theatrics. But she's also very sincere and very open about the unglamorous struggles she faces day to day in various ways, an assortment of autoimmune conditions, anxiety, depression, and memory loss among them. So while we're treated to humorous stories about why she can't go back to the drugstore or the post office ever again for having embarrassed herself in some outrageous way, we do also have the more serious side of things. For instance, she gives us a first-hand look at her experience with transcranial magnetic stimulation, also called TMS, an intensive treatment that's sometimes called for when other mental health therapies and prescriptions have been tried and found lacking. It's for what's called treatment-resistant depression, and I can vouch that it sucks. Lawson describes with candor the bad days, the better days, and the seesawing between the two. The good news for her is that overall the treatment is a success. But she injects her trademark humor into those writings too. She's not wallowing in despair or self-pity or getting overly serious, whether she's relating how dementia running in the family has affected her, or how anxiety has many times in her life held her hostage, sometimes literally. She does so with humor and poignancy, with a sense of gratitude for the bright spots, and while giving herself grace. And it's that grace that most influenced me to pick this book to share today, because being kind to yourself can be very hard when you're in the grips of a mental health episode, or just a bad day, right? Now, I'm as open about my own struggles as I am, for one thing, because of my sense of humanity. I don't want anyone else to ever feel as bad as I've felt, that they have to hide it, or just deal with it, or worst of all, carry it alone. Because what a lot of people don't realize if they haven't been through it, or they don't have a loved one that's been through it, is that an unwell brain is a big fat liar. It tells you things like, no one cares, no one understands, no one else gets it. There's no one you can talk to. And that's just a depressed brain. Anxiety brain comes with a whole different set of lies, a never-ending parade of what-ifs and second guesses, and always on high alert for the worst-case scenario. If you know where all your exits are, you're in our tribe. From a bystander perspective, it's obvious that those things aren't true, right? But perception is reality for all of us at any time. I'll share with you something my therapist told me. If you had a friend saying these things, what would you tell them? He asked me. Well, I'd tell them those things aren't true. You're not alone. People want to help you. Good, he answered. Now tell yourself that. I paid $90 for that, by the way. Y'all got it for free. So, being your friend when you're in a low place is hard, but it's a necessary skill to learn. And I say skill because you can practice it, and this is something else that Lawson explores in another way she's relatable. Sometimes you need to give yourself the space for feelings. It's okay not to be okay. Be kind to yourself and know there's an other side that you'll get to. Maybe not that afternoon or the next day, but at some point. Maybe you need help of one sort or another, but it's out there. And in the meantime, make the best of your broken, messy self that you can, whether it's with humorous writing, making art, or just managing to feed the cat. And these are the kinds of lessons she holds space for in between chapters with titles like Samuel L. Jackson is trying to kill me, and that time I got haunted by lizards with bike horns. So in one chapter, she talks about breaking a beloved ceramic figurine and finding ways to still appreciate it as it's now become a broken pile of shards, right? Similar to kintsugi, the Japanese practice of repairing things with gold so that the repairs become part of the item's beauty and its story, rather than something we try to disguise or overlook. And therein is only one of her musings on what brokenness can mean, what it can become, or make room for. In fact, the book's epigraph is one of my favorite Leonard Cohen quotes, with which some of you are undoubtedly familiar. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Thank you.